Everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and as you can see from the title of the video, we are going over the top 15 solo games from 2020. So they definitely have to have come out in 2020, and they're voted on, or were voted on, by this Rolling Solo board game community group on Facebook. Now, there are a lot more subscribers on the channel than there are members in this current Facebook group. However, we have a total of 3.7 or 3,700 plus members over the past, I believe, 2 years, almost 2 years, somewhere in that range. So that's really, really impressive. It's a huge group, and currently I'm the only administrator of it, but we haven't had any major issues to need multiple admins. The group has been fantastic. There's announcements there as I release videos, so you guys can check them out. We've also got constant conversations going on, game sharing going on of what people have on their tables and everything. It's just non-stop, and especially in these times where people are, disconnected, isolated, and stuff like this really adds a human element that I think a lot of people are missing in terms of connecting with other people. We're trying to do the best we can to connect digitally. This is one way that might help you out. So if you want to be a part of this group, definitely find us on Facebook, because we'd love to have you there. And the group that we currently have is amazing, and I'm sure you'd only add even better things to it. So it's going to continue to expand and continue to grow, and as of right now, it is a giant mosh pit of crazy solo gamers, and I absolutely love it, and it's one of my favorite spots to go. Now, the other location that we do have beyond just this Facebook group is the Discord channel. So if you haven't checked out the Discord channel, in the video description of even this video or the pinned comment, you'll find a link to that Discord. You can check that out. That's another thing that came out around the beginning of this year or so. Again, I don't remember the exact times I started these things, but they haven't been going on for very long. But that community is also thriving as well, and we love to have you there. More people sharing, and of course, things are all broken out by section or interest in different channels. So go to the Discord link, jump in. I'll add you in. We'd love to have you there. So those are the two major spots that are kind of open for everybody. The only other one that we have, which is, I consider it the backbone of my channel, is my Patreon. And that's where I've got patrons that have supported me financially, basically, to continue doing what I'm doing. And honestly, they are the backbone, because they are providing me with the ability to keep up with the insanity that is this board game industry. And then on top of it, be able to, up my production values as time goes on. It's been a huge help. And again, I will continue to say thank you to them all the time. So if you've ever considered that my content was worth your actual dollar, then definitely join that community as well. That's my Patreon community. There's links to that in the description below in the pinned comment. We'd love to have you there too. There's special exclusives that you'll find there, or videos that get released there before they go to the channel, that sort of thing. So yeah, those are my three major areas. And I just kind of wanted to dole those out, because I don't think I've ever actually done any video ever where I've mentioned those three major areas. So the majority of my audience here on YouTube may not even know that those things exist, beyond them just being links inside of a pinned comment. So there are other worlds waiting for you to check out within this community. So without further ado, we are here today to talk about the 15 games that were highest rated, or highest voted on, I should say, not rated, but highest voted on by the community from this Facebook group you're seeing on screen. So we're going to start with number 15. We're going to work our way all the way up to 1. And remember, these were voted on by the community. These are not mine. My actual picks will come in this future video down the line. So for now, let's go ahead and enjoy the ones that the community selected, starting with number 15. In position number 15, we have Wraithbusters Project Vril, and this is one that I was really happy to be able to put together a showcase for, as the rulebook had a couple issues in terms of getting over the hump of understanding how the game was played. This game is a lot of fun, but the rulebook had some barriers, and I was really hoping to nail that, or knock those barriers down, by putting together that showcase. And I believe, based on the comments that came in from that one, that I was able to pull that off. But this is, and I can show you again the description there. You probably were reading it on screen as I was going through, but if you're not familiar with this one, it's a lot of crazy, weird science, one-liners. It's all based in World War II, and it's obviously kind of an alternate reality type setting for World War II. But this is going to really interest a lot of individuals that are interested in that time period, or at least ones that don't care about the actual history being bang on. That's really what's going on with this one. It's pretty wild and it's pretty wacky, but it's a lot of fun, and there's multiple ways to play this game. It also looks really good on the table too, and can be quite a challenge as well. So one other thing I wanted to make mention of, this one being in the 15th position, is the community that got around behind it and kind of said and mentioned to Mythic that some of the rule books were tough to consume and find every rule that needed kind of that extra explanation. From my understanding, if I'm not mistaken, and somebody can let me know in the comments, but I believe there is an updated rulebook coming, 1.5. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that in comparison to what 1.0 looked like for the rulebook, as I know that one quite well. To see what's changed and what's more clarified through the game. So if you kind of toss it aside saying that it's got its rulebook issues and that's why I didn't enjoy it or even process what was going on, you might want to come back around to this one again. And the other thing I want to make mention of is a fantastic fan-made site. And this is something that, like, even back before the channel started, I always appreciated when fans took a game that people liked or disliked and then just went crazy. And they almost put this passion into the game that was there when the designers were building it, as if they were part of it from the very beginning. And this individual, who's actually listed at the bottom of this right here, and is an individual who I've seen on my channel commenting. I've seen this individual around quite a bit. Fantastic work, has gone ahead and put together kind of a fan-made raid and campaign site. So you can come in here and get additional campaigns, additional raids that weren't even included inside the box that are still being added to this day. And as you can see here, these missions are being added in. You can just go ahead, if you want to try one, you can grab it and you can download the solo mission for it. It's awesome, right? There's all these different responses down below, people enjoying it. I've seen this stuff posted on Facebook groups and people losing their minds over it because it's just extra content that's for the solo gamer. And when you get those people that are passionate enough to put that kind of time and effort in, like, you got to give them a pat on the back. So big kudos to you, Dieter. And I really hope Dieter, I really hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, because I'd feel terrible if I was messing that up. But I know you watch my videos, so definitely let me know in the comments below if you're watching. And thank you for doing this, because I really do think it's a service that goes without very many thank yous in this industry. And I'm sure Mythic Games appreciates it too, but this is the game in the 15th position. Next game on the list from the Rolling Solo community in the 14th position is Tiny Epic Dinosaurs. And I've got to admit right off the bat here, I never got a chance to even play this one. I have played Tiny Epic games before. Don't worry, I've played quite a few of them. But this is what I didn't play. And apparently the community was pretty high up on this one for this year. So this is one I might have to take another look at, as the first time through, I just wasn't sure. And it might be just kind of the thought process that I've seen quite a few of these Tiny Epic games. I think a lot of us are in that boat where, when the next one comes out, you kind of get this vibe that it's just a reskin, but every one of these games truly are of a different design, right? They just still keep the similar practice of trying to house a big or a big game, I should say, that actually, and when I say big game, I say a big footprint on the table sized game in a small box. That's really their aim there, and they do it well. The last one I played quite a bit was Tiny Epic Quest, and that actually took quite a bit of table space when you pulled that out. But this is one in the 14th position, and for solo gamers, according to my community, this is on the list. The next game on the list in the 13th position is Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef. And this one comes from Druid City Games and Skybound Games. This is a beautiful production, and I have been singing the praises of Game Trays. Now I'm talking about the storage here, but that's something that always gets me excited. I don't know what it is, and I've said this to Game Trays directly, but every single time they are involved in a project, I immediately get that much more interested in the project. And it's mainly because of the fact that it gets the game to the table and also packed away that much more efficiently, meaning the individual creating the game cares about my time. And for me, that's huge, because I have games going on and off the table like flapjacks. I need the games to be able to be put away quickly, taken out quickly, because I'm constantly swapping stuff on the table. So when I see that in a particular game, I get really excited. And this one just had the production value overall beyond the game trays that kind of drew me in. more than I expected it to, and it's probably just because of the theme of it more than anything else. When I saw it on Kickstarter, it didn't hit me like every other fantasy based game that I had seen in here, right? And this isn't that typical fantasy type game here, but it stood out as something completely different. It has, you can see the mechanisms all on the side here, and I love that Board Game Geek does this because you can just quickly at a glance see this stuff. But card drafting, dice rolling, hand management, set collection, variable player powers, worker placement. It's really cool being able to upgrade your dice and how they go about doing that. This is a game that is kind of, I think it's going to sneak its way up over time. It kind of came out and, amongst all the other games that came out from Kickstarter over this year, which seemed to be everything bleeding in from 2019. But I think this is going to sneak up as one of the ones that solo players are really going to enjoy. Next up on the list in number 12 position is Dune Imperium. And I can tell you right off the bat here, I have no experience whatsoever with any of the background for this one. So you can see right here in the description on Board Game Geek, it states this is going to have elements from both the new film from Legendary Pictures and the literary series, neither of which I have consumed or understand anything about. So I do apologize for that. This is one that came out, and I know there's going to be a bunch of people that are tied to the IP essentially behind this one that's going to gravitate towards it more. This is one I need to dig into a bit further to understand what is this thing all about. And I'm sure there's a number of you guys that are probably going, what do you mean you don't know anything about Dune? I don't know what it is. I just never got on that train. Maybe I need to get on. I don't know. But you guys have this on the list right now. Certainly needs to be there for some reason. It's obviously making solo gamers happy. And taking a look at what we've got here in terms of how it looks on the table, one of the things that I found looking at it from somebody who has no idea about the IP in general was I found the board to not be that inviting in terms of its look and in terms of just, it doesn't pull me in. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I haven't really gone after getting it just yet. But based on the fact this got voted up as high as it did and the rating, it's on Board Game Geek to saying it's anything 8 and above is pretty good. It's probably something you should at least try. This is one I need to probably put a little extra time into to understand more. So this is one that I'm interested in watching it played or actually just playing it myself. Then at that point, I can make a decision for me. In the 11th position is Viscounts of the West Kingdom, and this comes from Garphill Games. Ever since Raiders hit, I consumed that like crazy when they had that solo deck. The solo deck then disappeared and was almost near impossible to find. And then, of course, they have the app that came out that was able to allow you to solo it. And ever since Raiders, really, has been where I have constantly tipped my hat at Garphill Games for what they're able to put out in terms of focusing on the solo gamer. Every single time they seem to nail it with every design. So this is a game that if you are interested in this style of play, like it's beautiful looking on the table, it's very strategic. This is a prototype, by the way, so it's not a great example. But at the end of the day, this makes sense. When I saw this on the list, I was like, yep. Community, you have picked very well here. And if that's not a hint as to, my liking of this one for my own list in a future video, there you go. You just got a nod. But yeah, this is one that when I saw it on the list, I was like, yep, this is a great choice. You can see here, they're obviously trying to pick certain time frames and cover them. But again, every time they pump something out, I'm always all ears. So this definitely deserves its slot on this list. And now we move into the top 10 of the list from the Rolling Solo board game community on Facebook. In the number 10 position, we have Night of the Living Dead, a zombicide game. And I can tell you why this thing has crawled its way up into the top 10. And it's honestly justified. Now, this is a massive difference in the game we just talked about from Garphill Games, where the weight was heavier. This is much lighter. But the bonus with this one that I really enjoyed when I actually did my showcase was the fact that at the end of the day, when you're done with this game, you only have a single box worth of content. And I kind of attribute this or compare it to Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. What it did for Gloomhaven, essentially, by coming out with a smaller iteration that's more accessible, that is a better entry point for individuals who've never played one before. Yes, there are people out there that have not played a Zombicide game, and believe me, if they haven't played any of them before, this is the one they want to play. It's not overwhelming and it's not insane. In other words, it doesn't have 50,000 abominations with a single rule for each one of them that all have different thoughts and different procedures that you have to overlap and try to figure out how it all works together. This game has one rule book, you read it, and you're ready to go. And you'll know every single rule, they'll all stick in your head. It's lightweight, you'll have fun, and you'll put it away. Done. That is the kind of experience that this game needs to have at this point in its life cycle when its previous entries have been gigantic. Now, granted, I take that with a grain of salt because, even in my own advice here, that this is a better iteration, I've actually gone ahead and backed Zombicide 2nd Edition, and I'm terrified for the day that that shows up at my door. It might end up being a better version of Zombicide, be better than this, but I still will say that this is the best entry into the series at this point. Just like I'll still say Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion is the best entry point for Gloomhaven at this point. And we'll talk more about that one later on. But as of right now, Night of the Living Dead definitely deserves to be on the list. And this was definitely a step in the right direction in terms of the Zombicide series. Number 9 from the Rolling Solo community is Under Falling Skies. It says, you alone command the forces of a city holding off invading aliens. And as you can see, there's only one player allowed in this one. So there's probably a reason why solo gamers are singing the praises of this one. Now, not a ton of people have come in here to actually go ahead and give much of a recommendation on this, but that's probably because if you can only play one player, there's really only one answer to that question. Weight-wise, it's not that heavy. It's average, for sure. But in terms of its gameplay and what people are enjoying with it, they really are enjoying this one quite a bit. Now, for me personally, I want to spend a little bit more time with this one to see if it has the staying power that other people are saying that it seems to have. But I am interested, and I do think this deserves to be on the list. I love solo games that are small box. It's something that actually probably this year more than any other year, because of so many delays with the bigger monstrosity solo games that are out there, more of the smaller ones like this got through the cracks this year. And some of these smaller ones that only take 20 to 40 minutes are some of the best games of the year. So this is a definite like nod from me saying like good choice from the community on this one. This definitely deserves to sit in the 9th position. Moving on to number 8 on the list, Dwellings of Eldervale. This comes from Breaking Games. What really drove me towards this one, first off, was just his art design and how it looked on the table. When it first landed on Kickstarter, I was kind of like, this looks pretty awesome. And I wasn't 100% sure whether this one was going to actually hold up or not, but based on what I'm hearing from my community in terms of the individuals that have been playing this one, it's been holding its weight. It's been doing really well, and it looks like the solo side of this thing is also doing very well and is highly regarded. So I'm actually pretty impressed on this one, and the weight it's getting up there. It's not super heavy or anything like that. It's a worker placement game, as it mentions here. You're battling for control of a new fantasy realm in this worker placement game. And there's more information down here below. I've gone through a number of pictures. Sometimes the pictures that they actually show, like this one's much better. Sometimes you end up getting thrown into a loop of pictures that have nothing to do with the final version of the game. Like some of the ones you just saw were mostly prototypes, but this is a solid choice. And this is definitely, as I just mentioned from the prior game, running more onto the bigger side of things because the Kickstarter for this one actually had quite a bit of content that you could pick up for this thing. And it is kind of a table hog in terms of how much space or footprint it takes up on the table. But it sounds like the gameplay is truly there. Moving on to position number 7 on the list, we have Solar-Storm, another one that's, this one's actually complexity-wise even simpler rated than Zombicide, and but it's a smaller box game. It's very small, and that's something, like I said, is kind of a trend for this year. A lot of the smaller, single-player games snuck through the cracks this year for solo players and kind of took off. And it's really exciting because some of these publishers that actually aren't these massive publishers that everyone's familiar with are kind of getting the limelight this year, which is nice because some of these tiny games are actually packing a lot of punch for solo gamers. So this is one I definitely recommend checking out. I enjoyed my time with it as well. Now, I didn't do any coverage on the channel beyond, I believe, an unboxing for it, but it's definitely worth looking into and another one that the community chose wisely on. In the number 6 position, we have Aeon's End Outcast. This comes from Indie Boards and Cards, and honestly, my standpoint around Aeon's End has always been, if you're looking to get into it, the best thing to do is grab the most recent iteration. I find going with that and working backwards is actually the best in this case because there's so many iterations of Aeon's End. But the game, in terms of its card drafting and deck building mechanisms and all that kind of stuff, and just really what it did from the very beginning in its first entry all the way up to what it does currently. It's taken a couple different avenues. It's got the legacy version that's out there too. It also kind of continues to build upon what it did in the very first original one too. And there's some people that are extremely passionate about picking up every single iteration of this, and I don't blame them at all. It's a fantastic game. They're always highly rated, and people really do enjoy them, and they do make tweaks to them as they go along. So when I saw this on the list, I wasn't, shatteredly shocked by what I was seeing here, but definitely a solid choice for solo players out there. All right, welcome to the top 5 of the list. We are starting off with Warp's Edge, another game that is a small box game. That's right. There's quite a few of these on the list. You guys might actually be happy with this. With Christmas coming around the corner, you might be going, maybe I can buy most of these. You probably can, because the actual cost of these things are not going to be that expensive. This is another game that's going to take around 30 to 45 minutes of time to play. The community picked another great one. It's best at 1 because it can only be played at 1, so I don't think anyone's going to ever vote on that one ever. Renegade Game Studios is behind this one. I'll show you some pictures about this one, and I'd love to go through these in depth in terms of talking more about what they actually do. But if they're on this list, you need to just check them out. That's all I'm going to say. You need to at least, understand them from a playthrough side of things, or potentially just actually try them yourself to see whether it's for you. But like I said, this year was the year for these small box games to kind of bust out of the woodwork. The fact that they sit, overall not very high on Board Game Geek is not a good indication of where they actually are for the year in the solo world. This is actually a highly regarded game that came out and is quite popular. So again, not surprising, at least this thing landed in the top 5. In the 4th position, we have a game called On Mars. This is an 8.3 rating, and it is as close to the heavy side of things as you can get. So if you're looking for something on this list that is going to burn your brain, this is the game for you. And this individual is behind it. And so if you are familiar with his work in the past, which of course he's got a lot of games that are on that side of the equation in terms of being extremely heavy, you're going to love this. You're going to eat it up. But it does have its individuals that also lean the other way and say it's too much. I want my solo gaming to be a relaxing experience and not a earth-shattering, mind-busting adventure. But in this case, the production value on the game itself is pretty awesome. And you can see the first time you take a look at this game, if you know nothing about it, you'll feel like you are a mad scientist or someone who needs to do about 4 days of research just to understand what's happening here in this game in terms of looking at it on the table. It is an overwhelming game to look at, but the actual presentation of it on the table is beautiful. But you will look at it and say, I have 10,000 questions I need answered as of right now. That is the kind of approach that this game has. It's heavy, it's big, and but it is a great game. And so I definitely understand why my community was behind this one. Now, for me personally, I have not given this one enough time to actually have a very solid opinion on it just yet. And I don't do reviews and opinions on games anyway, but I truly respect that this is on the list because I do love games that fall into this type of, as it says right here, city building, economic, exploration, science fiction. Like, these are all the different areas that I think are extremely cool, and if done right, are amazing. And this is certainly a game in that conversation. But for me, I just haven't played it enough to be able to say whether it's going to actually stick around or not. And that's something I can't say. But my community has put it as high up this chart as they have, so that is saying something in and of itself. And now we have reached the top of the list. We are in the top 3. So we're talking about the cream of the crop here in terms of the community and what they're most excited about. Alter Quest is in the number 3 position. This comes from Blacklist Games. And as you can see, if you're familiar with a game called Hero Quest, it certainly has that vibe in terms of its look and feel. So there are some inspirations there. But the actual gameplay and the system behind it comes mainly on the deck side of things from the modular deck system, the MDS system that all of us know from Street Master Brook City. This was one for me personally, even though my community just put this at the 3 position. This was one that was I'm really looking forward to diving into this one deeper than what I've already experienced thus far. The reason is because of all the entries that were out there on Kickstarter for Blacklist games, and of which there were quite a few of them. This is the one that I really gravitated towards. Like I looked at it and everything about it, whether it was its presentation on the table, the actual mechanisms the game was bringing in, you can see down here on the right, just a category that this fell into. This was kind of the adventure game I think I was looking for and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to get even more into this one. And the other thing that's kind of crazy is the timing of it too, with it delivering, or at least in terms of when it went on Kickstarter, and then eventually when it delivered. In between there, you also had the Hero Quest, pre-orders going up for Hasbro. And of course, you have a whole bunch of people reliving their childhood, losing their minds, pre-ordering that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I was actually so close to pre-ordering it myself. And then I realized, even though everyone else has told me it's awesome, I've never played it myself. So I don't have those childhood connections. So I decided to actually pass on it. Who knows? I might get a copy in the future, but I thought, you know what? Alter Quest already fills, I think, the more modern void of that particular game in my collection. I think I'd rather have Alter Quest. So this is a solid selection for my community, and looking forward to seeing how well the gameplay pans out as I move through deeper into the content. And I'm sure you guys knew that this was going to be on the list somewhere. Aether Fields from Awakened Realms has definitely started landing, and most people have their hands on this thing. The complexity rating for this one is actually above average, and that makes sense because there actually is quite a bit going on here. There's a lot of a learning curve going on as you're playing through the game and understanding the ins and outs of what it's doing. The other thing you have to make note of is the fact you're kind of going into this with not too much knowledge. Beyond the rule book, most of the understanding of the game comes from actually playing it itself. If you look at the rulebook at its face value, it's pretty tough to get a good gauge as to what you're about to run into until you start running into it. So this is one of those games where you need to play through the rulebook, if that makes sense. So essentially, you want to start playing and also consuming the rulebook along with it. You can also, to help you, if you're out there and you're kind of going, I'm lost, it's overwhelming, it's crazy, there's a file section here, and a fantastic individual, who I wish I actually knew the real name of this person, has gone ahead and put together a Getting Started with Aether Fields guide. So there has been talk on reviews that Aether Fields is a bit, overwhelming, and it's a little bit confusing and all that kind of stuff. And maybe the layout of the board itself is not as great as it could have been. All that stuff aside, if you're still looking to enjoy the game itself, this is what you'd want to check out. This Getting Started with Aether Fields 1.1 version will literally talk about how you open it up, what you should open, where you should put it, and then move you right through that initial section of Aether Fields to get you over the hump of maybe any confusion you'll run into as you go through it. So the only reason I'm mentioning that is just because I'm sure there's people in my community that were anticipating this one and want a helping hand. I currently don't have videos for the most recent final production yet. I did do some content on Kickstarter when it first landed, and I absolutely loved it. I love the idea of going into a dream world, because I just think it leaves so many options open as to what could happen, being that it's a dream world. Anything is possible, and you kind of give your imagination a bit of a, get out of jail free card in terms of, whatever it is that the creator was into, whatever it is that the story that's being told. If you're in a dream world, everything's fine and like everything goes. So this is a really interesting one in terms of just trying to understand what the heck's actually happening. But that's part of the magic of it, I think, and that's part of the mystery of it that I think allures people to want to play it further and find out more, like what the heck's actually going on in this thing. So long story short, I am aiming to actually do some content on the channel for this one, but you're going to have to give me a little bit of time to actually get into it enough that I feel firmly grasping what's going on, to the point where I can create a video that doesn't add any noise to the current state of things. I'd rather help rather than hurt. In terms of actually producing a video that's going to really break down a barrier for everybody. So that's exactly my plan. We'll see how things pan out. So Aether Fields, does it deserve to be on this list? Absolutely. It was extremely hotly anticipated and is still pulling people in right now. I believe the Pledge Manager is open as well. That's another scary option for a lot of people that were kind of on the fence and wondering, would I get another chance to ever get this? You might, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's open as of me recording this right now on December 15th. And in the number 1 position on the list is Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion from Cephalofair Games. This one I know was going to land on the list somewhere. I had no idea exactly where, but it makes sense that the community would be this excited about this particular one. It's way up there on the rankings, and it's no surprise Gloomhaven's way up there as well. But like I said, when we were talking about Zombicide, Night of the Living Dead, what Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion did for Gloomhaven is essentially the best marketing strategic move that they could have ever done. They not only pared down a game to a size that's actually consumable, instead of having 90 plus scenarios, it's down to like 25-ish and around that range. You've actually got the game down to a box size that's manageable. You've got it down to a point where the components are manageable. And then it goes to retail. The plus on top of it going to retail is now we're taking one of the best modern board games that our hobby has to offer and now throwing it out into the wild to see if others can find it. And when they do find it, might open the door up to all of the crazy games that we have in our hobby. On top of that, they put together probably, in my opinion, the best rule book that was done in this entire year in terms of learning how to play a game as you actually play it. So you have 5 introductory tutorial scenario missions, let's say, or 5 missions in a row that use these little blue area prints. They're kind of like nodes or the little comments that will point to certain things that you're looking at and really just clarify what you're seeing so there's no confusion. And then on top of it, they also did it for the cards. They weren't going to just stop at the level of, hey, we'll explain the board away. We're also going to do it on the cards that you have in your hand. So if you're looking at this and you see an attack with a symbol and a 3 and a range with a symbol and another number, what does that mean? Read it. It literally spells out exactly how that card is supposed to work. And guess what? Once you start upgrading your cards and moving on past these tutorial ones for the first 5, these rules are all stuck in your head and you are good to go. And so on top of the target release, going after individuals outside the hobby that have never played a game like this before, the rule book being fantastic and really should be a staple and a guideline as to how you should actually teach a relatively complex game. It's actually above average on its weight for Gloomhaven. It's most dungeon crawlers are not up there. But this is a perfect way to teach them, and a lot of people should take notes on this. And then on top of it, it's a prelude to Gloomhaven. So the people that already have Gloomhaven would look back at this and go, do I really need to relearn Gloomhaven? Do I really need to experience this or buy this from Target? Yes, you do, because this will tell the story before Gloomhaven even existed in terms of, well, I guess before the events of Gloomhaven, it's a better way to say it. So this thing hit everybody. Like, it hit the people that were not part of our hobby, the people that actually backed the Kickstarter and had never understood the story prior to that Gloomhaven game, also hit those people too. And then all the people that actually just want to learn the original game, you can literally use the rulebook from this game to understand Gloomhaven, the Kickstarter game, better. Like, in terms of how the actual mechanisms work. Because the way it's laid out in this rulebook in Jaws of the Lion is fantastic. And I'm not going to, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. You'll hear it too many times. In the future, probably too. So yes, long story short, do I agree with this for the community? Yes, I do. I do agree it's supposed to be on the list. I don't know if it'll be my number 1. But as of right now, there's so many reasons to be impressed by what they did with this and how they handled it and how they covered pretty much every area or avenue that could possibly be a question mark around this one. They think they nailed it. So this certainly deserves to be on the list. And as an ending of this list, I'm quite pleased with my community. This is a pretty solid list overall. So first off, huge thanks to everybody that voted up to this point. The voting could have kept on going forever, but you know what? We got to stop it at some point. There was voting across multiple different areas, but the Facebook community took the cake for actually doing the most voting. And long story short, that is going to end this list, and we are going to move into some other lists that I've got up my sleeve here in the near future. I'm really excited for them. I'm not going to spoil anything just yet because I'm not sure what order they're going to come out in. But even as of last year, I think I had this list, which was my community-based list. I think it came out on the 6th or 7th, so I actually am kind of behind. Typically, I've already got a bunch of my lists out before even Christmas hits, so I've got some work to do, but thought this would be the first and most interesting one to get out the door, and then we'll go from there. So thanks, rollers. Appreciate all the support, and as always, keep on rolling solo.